Welcome to Warblog. Today I'm looking at a new development. In fact, I'm already there. I usually start on the home screen and work in, but this game isn't actually complete. It's sort of something it's in progress, but it's interesting because it's SUSE. Now, the thing is, I actually did this game a long time ago. Well, I didn't. That's a complete lie. You'll see in a second. Because it hasn't actually happened yet, has it? Because obviously it's happening right now, so I couldn't have done it before. But I did the same place, so to speak, before, and it's just so interesting because it all sort of adds up. There, the capture of Susa, Armenia. So it was part of Armenia. We'll look at the game. So this was in 1992. So these blue ones presumably are Armenian, and these green ones are Azerbaijan ones. Now, there's the video. Now this, I even remember sort of where I was. No, I don't actually remember where I was. I can remember. To be quite honest, I can't remember anything at the moment whilst I'm doing this, but I remember distinctly doing this video. And I'm sure if I wasn't doing this video and I was just sort of not trying to do the video at the same time, I'd be able to think of the other things that I'm pretty sure I know, but I can't remember where I was and when I was. But the thing is, the reason I remember this video in particular because of two things. Firstly, it was before I had done any of the not even advanced features, but anything like I think anything like depression factors. I think that's it. I think in order to beat them, you had to get a DE, and because I couldn't do that, it just went around and round in circles, and it spent ages doing this. That's just an aside, really. I mean, first thing is, I did this video. Now, the key thing about SUSE is that it's on a big ridge. Now, in this game, there is only one way into the ridge, and that's through this road. Now, in this game, there's actually a few other ways, but what I've got now is ridges here. So the point of a ridge is that it works. You can't go down them. You can go across, but you can't go down a ridge. Now, there's maybe a few things to consider here, above and beyond what I've done. In theory, I haven't tested this yet, but they work similarly to rivers. I probably have to fudge things a bit or do a few more bits and pieces, but essentially, in the combat screen, they won't be able to fight. The only thing is that it's not really worth worrying too much about. It's 8:40 in the morning actually, and I still haven't gone to bed. I'm going to bed now, nice and 8:40 in the morning. It's insane. But the you can't do attrition. That's what I'm trying to get to. But it would make sense to do attrition. And further, if you were to move there, you go into a zone of control because it exerts its zone of control. Now, whether I go through the rules and change it so that there's no zone of control is another thing. I haven't really thought of that. I'm just taking one step at a time. But what I've got, I mean, it's quite a lot of work to get to this stage. I've got to draw these things. Now, they're white, and I'm not so sure about them being white. In this instance, it's not great because this is an urban area, so it sort of blends in a bit. But I can sort of see it, and I was thinking of orange, but I don't want. I thought, well, orange would be good because you could really be able to see it, but I don't want them being too dominant. And I thought, well, I could do this, or I could do that, and to be quite honest, I'm not really sure. But I can always go and change that. The fact is, I've got the elements. I can just change it in a graphics app quite quickly. So the important thing is I've got the elements there. So that's first. So I had to design them, and obviously you have to design 6 because there's one for each hex, and then you have to design all the code to. Well, you have to put the array in, and that's not simple because it's got to be populated because all the old ones don't have an array that goes up to the level that these things are at. And then you've got to do all the updating stuff, the terrain modification sort of tools so that you can actually add them in. And then you've got to do it not only in the unit element sort of section, but also in the sort of the full array section, so to speak. I'm just talking about rubbish there, in a sense. But there are quite a few different places. I mean, I can click on a hex and it will say, well, there'll be a tick box basically that equates to putting it there, or there, or there. That's the unit element box I'm sort of referring to. The other one is where I click another box and I go into a slightly different way. I can't edit everything. I can only edit one thing. So I'll select, say, rivers. This was a development I did a long time ago. These changing. But then in the rivers thing, it's only rivers that I'm checking, and then I will go click, 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 click. Rivers take a long time. You've got to do both sides. Roads, not so much. I go click, 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 update, done. It used to be that I'd have to go click into this thing, and I can see all the options. So I can say, okay, I'll put in hills, and then I'll put in a track. But in this one, I'd go, okay, hills, track, village, name, objective type, objective top value, bottom value, ridge, update. So I do them all in one go, but that takes a long time because if you've got to do this, you've got to go in here, do the river, click, come out. In here, do the river, click, come out. It's really time consuming. It used to take when there was lots and lots of rivers, it could take me like hours. Even doing this is a bit of a hassle, but I'm probably doing it 20 times faster. I mean, I'll have to change that. That's nothing, but it's interesting anyway. So I just wanted to do this video as a sort of development video. And the thing is, I really enjoy this scenario. When they sort of said, they're just getting to sort of Susha, and Susha is a critical battle because it's a central location. They've got elements on 3 other points, but they can't move over to defend Susha because if they move away from these points, they lose, etc., etc. So there's sort of a lot of implications as to the strategic position of Susha, and the thing is, further, it's on this sort of ridge, and the ridge actually goes all the way around. I mean, I'm going to do it, although I just sort of stopped there because I just wanted to test it. I'm only testing things, and being able to do that is just, it's fantastic. He's going to take forever, isn't he, to get anywhere? But if we look back at this, though, just quickly, you can sort of see the difference. We've got that river, but we don't have this river. So that's interesting. I always like this sort of to examine that. So we've got sort of trees here. It's a bit more sort of squad leader-ish, but I don't like squad leader. I mean, I would never try to make it look like that, but it does look at it because you can sort of think, I'll get into these bushes here and fire across the river or something, and that's just, this is stupid, really. I mean, obviously it's not stupid, but it's not what I enjoy. But so it is more strategic. But it's interesting to see how it's developed. I mean, I don't think this is a bad map. You can interpret it, but I think this one is a slightly different, and it's interesting to say, oh, hang on, that's how I did this one, and what does this one look like? And obviously there's this river missing. Why? Well, maybe I just didn't see it on the map. Should I leave this map river in? Probably. Should I add this river in? Maybe, but I quite like leaving it as it is because that's how I remember it, etc., etc. So you can sort of compare and contrast. Now, obviously, they're bigger scales, so it's going to look a little bit better, but you've got all this other stuff. I mean, I've got Desalty there, and there's Desalty there. So we've got features. We've got Muxter there, and Muxter there. You can sort of do these things, and because they're all historic maps, and that's the thing I love about it, because they're historic maps, and I'm quite big on history. You can actually say, they need to test this, they need to pass the test of time, and that is the critical factor. Do they pass the test of time? Can you come back to this map that I did 5 years ago and say, what's all this rubbish? Well, it's not rubbish. Look, we've just seen Desalty, we've just seen Muxter, we confirmed that the river's there. Maybe I can add this river in here. I can say, well, that's something that can be added, but it's not, wholly detrimental. You can, it's what's the word when it's in good order and good shape. I don't know. It's basically I can't remember the word I'm looking for really. Not comprehensive. It's quite it's suitable, adequate. It passes the test in my mind's eye for something that is what it is, and when you compare it into another interpretation, there's a match, which means that it's integral. It has historic integrity. The integrity of its geographic layout is sufficient to pass the test that I think it should be passing. I just really rubbish at speaking at the moment. I just don't know. There's a word that I'm trying to find, and I'm thinking if I flow through words quickly enough, I'll just stumble upon it, and it will just come out, and I'll remember it when I just sort of finish this video and try and have a little sleep. But the thing is, I just want to have a quick look at this. So anyway, we've got this thing called ridges, and this is a fantastic option, and I'll be able to go back to other scenarios where there should be ridges and start adding them. And I think ridges are going to be quite good. I don't like ridges so much from the point of view of them being a tactical feature, but when they're a strategic feature, I think it can be quite interesting, especially when you want to delimit, say, a certain region or a certain sort of geographic feature into the map. For example, a pass, or for example, I could put a range of hills and then put a ridge around them, like some of the Mesa landscape of Arizona, etc., or whatever. There's some fairly sort of solid hills in Yemen, Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, just everywhere really. But for example, the Aden. I mean that would probably be quite conducive to some ridges. But I just want to. So we talked about the ridges, and they work, and that's all this video is about. But obviously, it's just a video, so I was going to have a little chat. Not so much of a chat. I want to look at this video because this is the third city attack game. Modify the trailer. Yeah, look at that. It's all on the right hand side. I don't want to expand it too much. I mean, I could, but I don't know whether a video here. But what I do like to do with these, not all the time, but quite often. Well, I did it quite often years ago. Actually, I haven't done it for a while but it's basically to put the playback speed. I think you can customize it. You can still only customize it up to 2. But the thing is, okay, it's twice the speed, but you don't really notice it. You don't sort of think, oh, that's going twice the speed. It just looks pretty much as slow and boring as ever, but you realise you're getting it through it at twice the rate. I'm not sure what really happens here, but let's just sort of... So obviously they start fighting. I can remember the sort of play. You sort of hit this unit first, then you hit that unit, and hopefully you should win. And it'll probably play differently nowadays. But what happens is they keep getting these exchanges. I think I was actually attacking up the... Because there were no depression factors, see, so everyone was just getting a defender retreat. Okay. The reason I sort of watched this, because the thing I remember about this is that somehow it just kept going on forever and ever, or one of these games, maybe not this one. But they would sort of get to that hex, and then I would hit them, and then get back into this hex. One to one, that's what's happening, you see. What happened after the 1-to-1? Did they attack back? I don't understand what happened there. Did they advance or something? How did they advance? Oh my God. You can see what's happening there, can't you? I mean, I know I'm talking to myself, but this was before you did the this is before you could... Obviously he's just advancing automatically. This was before you even had the choice to advance. So when I first did it, you automatically... I can't even remember that, but the battle was won and they all advanced. So that's sort of what's happening. So they're attacking, they're retreating, so they're not getting the DE. Anyway, it just goes around in circles, but I won't labour too much on that, because otherwise you could just watch the video yourself. But it goes on forever, you see. They just keep attacking and attacking and attacking. because there's no. The thing is, the point is, I remember it quite distinctly. There's no depression factor, so they just keep going around in circles. It was just like they were just cat and mouse, push them from one place to another, and they're sort of pushing them out there, and the next minute surrounded again. Oh, it looks like they pushed them out there. But that's that game, and Susha is famous for its essentially relatively naturally defend a fortified position. In the current situation, the Azerbaijanis are coming from the south. They've sort of split through here somehow to Nabila, and they've pushed through to Desalti, so they're sort of around here. But they don't have the northern things, and I was just looking at the south front really. I just don't have time to really sort of do anything really to keep up with this, but I did look at the south front muscles on my exercise bike. I watched the south front video on things. And it's basically saying that Hadra, they surrounded Hadra, you see, and that's how they got Hadra. I mean, that's about as much as I know, but you pick up these things by just watching them, and suddenly those pieces start to fit together, and you can join the dots, and you say, oh right, okay, Hadra. Sorry, I'm laughing at something else. There's Kwaibali, but obviously it's on the other side of a river. So I'll either have to put in a bridge, a ford, or give them some engineers, because otherwise they'll never get there. And that just struck me as a bit funny. But the thing is, they surrounded Hadra, but they haven't surrounded this, and so they're going to have to sort of try and do it. And it'd be interesting to see how they do it. I mean, in '92, I don't think the firepower was that greater, or that any sort of less potent than it is now. But I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. What I'm sort of getting to here is, if this was me, I would just carpet bomb the place until there was nothing left. But I mean, not that I would do that, but you can imagine that would be the way to get Susha. Or maybe they've got some kind of cave system, which would make that a little harder. Maybe they don't want to push that hard. Maybe they're playing it easy to limit the destruction of Susha. I don't know. But the other thing that the South Front thing did touch on was Russian, not so much interference, that's not a word, Russian involvement or Russian support or Russian intervention. Basically it said that the Russians are quite clearly, it said, providing military aid. So they're providing weapons, and it said that that's clearly reducing the pace of the Turkish Azerbaijani advance. It makes it quite clear it's the Turkish Azerbaijani advance. It also says that the video also said that they're using Syrian mercenaries as cannon fodder, which it's interesting really, the effect that these little South Front videos have, because I just watched it and it was easy to watch because it was only 3 or 4 minutes long, and all of a sudden I understood a lot more, because it just said in one line, it said that's how they took Hadra. Well, I've done the video, I haven't actually done the game, I've got the game, I'm pretty sure, for Hadra. I can't remember anything. But look at all these games that have yet to be done. Sultani, Tunas, Fazuli, Road to Hadrat. There we go. So the way they got Hadrat in the end was by surrounding it. But I think the thing here is because we've got the road all the way up there, we don't have the sort of the close-up of Hadrat. Hadrat's just one hex, where I think we'd really need something where Hadrat's like this and they're doing, the final push on Hadrat maybe. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I need to sleep. Never sleep. Yeah, ridges. There seem to be quite a lot of developments. There's so many other developments that I want to do. I mean, ridges has always been in the pipeline, so it doesn't feel as though it's a new, innovative, fantastic, fresh thing to do. The fresh things I think are the drones. And some of the things that I want to do with that, for example, using drones to spot. One of the other things that I want to do, that I'll just broach quickly whilst I remember it, even though I should be sleeping really, is that I want to do. I mean, I know exactly what it is, but for some reason it seems to be falling off the end of my mind. It is when you spot units. I don't know why that took me so long to get out, because I'm trying to think of some sort of perspective on the way to describe it. So basically, if you've got a hidden unit there, the only way to get it is if you go into that hex. So if I was to move down here, obviously I couldn't go to the hex as a ridge, so I'd have to go one, dung, and that would take me a million years, take me 1, 2, 3, 4 turns. But when I got there, ordinarily I just wouldn't see anything, and I'd go there and there and there and down here, and I'd only get it if I was in there. Now what I want to do, if it's a hidden unit, for example an insurgent unit, as some of these games have them, and it's only the games that have them where it's relevant, but if there's a hidden unit there, if the unit passes here, there's going to be a percentage chance of seeing it. And the reason for that is because on some of these search and destroy type games, I think it can be quite boring to face the possibility of having to go into every hex in order to do that search and destroy. So the functionality to seek out enemies in adjacent hexes, I think, needs to be there. You'll always wake them up if you go into that hex, but if you go past it, there'll be a percentage chance. I'm just mentioning that, but there'll also be a very similar similar process for drones. So then you'll be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to get some drones, because I'm going to put a drone, I'm going to search here. And then basically check all the adjacent hexes. I'm not going to do any more hexes. I think that hex and adjacent hexes is fair enough. It will show you if there's a hidden unit there, but there'll be a percentage chance. So you could search there, and if it was a 70% chance and you failed, and there was one there, but you rolled 83, you wouldn't see it. And so you would never really know, but you'd have a 70% chance of knowing that you had. So I think that that's going to be another development that I want to do. I mean, there's millions of other developments that I want to do, but the drone thing, I think, is something that is fairly key, really. It's fairly interesting in the current sort of climate of new developments, and I'm not trying to take the game in a different direction, but I'm trying to make it, certainly, I mean, obviously I've got the stuff about the counterinsurgency coin sort of system, and that's interesting. It's something that they want to do. It doesn't strike me as being reflective of newer modern warfare, but this drone stuff does. And for example, one of the other things I've yet to do is EW, which is electronic warfare. So if you've got an EW unit on the board, any drone attacks, and to some extent aircraft attacks. Basically, I can't remember exactly what it would do, but EW will give air defense units like a plus 10%, depending on what it's about. EW will also reduce certain things. I don't know what it will do exactly, but I know that it's going to be quite useful. So you're going to end up with these EW units, electronic warfare units, and more for that sort of drone type technology. I haven't so much thought about ground-based robotics, but I think the air war is not something I really want to get too involved with or too hung up on. But I think that it's something that, from a game element, will make the player feel as though they have access to the elements that are in play in these situations. I mean, in 1992, Susha would have been a different game. I've called it Susa here because that's how it is on the open street map that I've got. But on the other map, it's called Shusha. No, Susa is actually how it's called on the Southfront site. No, I'm wrong. Southfront call it Shusha, and the map is called Susa, but I've called it that just to sort of include both definitions. Because one thing I'm very sort of aware of is that it's almost place names can change almost depending on what you're reading. I mean, it can be spelt one way in Google Maps, another way in OpenStreetMaps, another way in Southfront, another way in BBC, another way in somewhere else, and you realise that a lot of these places are not actually spelt properly. But anyway, that's it. So there's lots of developments, lots of things to happen, obviously lots of games to do, and I still don't really have time to sort of do much, but I'm very happy with the progress. I started to sort of just look at things, and I'm thinking, wow, there's such a long way to have sort of come, so to speak. I was looking at something the other day, and I'd marvelled that I got up to 57 games or something, but that's 81, that's 810, that's over 800 games, and that's no small amount, and some of them are better than others, and obviously I've got quite a few to sort of finish. I don't feel so bad about this at the moment, but this Nagorno-Karabakh situation, I haven't even got close to getting on top of. It's like a horse that's sort of like, I mean, I haven't even got close to sort of put a lasso. I'm trying to catch it. I'm trying to catch this wild horse. And the only thing I can do is manage to occasionally get it back in my sight. It's sort of like it's 3 miles away, and I think, I'm gonna. If it wasn't so stupid and it didn't sort of stop every now and then, it would just get clear away from me. But I sort of get another sort of 20 yards nearer, and I find that I can see it again. And then, but that's about it. So it's just endless, really. I think one of the things I'm having difficulty with is understanding what the hell's going on. I'm a little clearer now, because when I see one of these Yemen games, I just throw it together and I plonk the units in, and I'm so familiar with it, it's second nature. But with these, you just got to be, hang on, is this a Turkish? What's this? The other thing I did do, I just feel like talking now, really, but I'm not really talking. I mean, obviously I am, but what I'm saying is there's no purpose to it. So there's no real meaning to what I'm going to say, other than it's quite important. But the Khojaly massacre which is 1992. This is actually quite an important one, and it took a bit of time. When they get to this sort of stage, they become quite difficult for a number of reasons. In particular, this one, because you've got the 366 and you've got these the OMON special purpose mobile units in Kajole. I'll explain this a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Well, basically, the 366 were noted for carrying out a massacre of villagers from Kajole. It's really sort of 366 without instructions from the head unit, apparently, and some Armenian units. So, obviously, there were broader things happening. So, I've added these just for sort of reference. But if you get into Kajole, so basically they bomb it. They carry out artillery strikes, regularly, and then basically they're only a police unit, but they're OMON special purpose mobile units. They're using Kajole to sort of carry out artillery and sniper attacks on surrounding places. But they actually carry out this sort of massacre. So it's a well-known scenario. And so I had to be quite careful about putting it together, not because I'm sort of careful in any sort of, moral, ethical sense directly, but I wanted to, the Yemen ones, I can just throw them together. When you get something like this, you've got to read through the Wikipedia so you don't get anything wrong. But secondly, it's a sensitive item, and thirdly, it's treble sensitive because it's actually sort of happening again right now, and you can quite imagine maybe that there'll be Azerbaijanis who might remember this, and obviously they've got the upper hand at the moment, and we've already seen they've committed war crimes. So there is a degree of sensitivity about it. And I did sort of consider and think, I did a video on the Rwanda war. It was basically just a walkthrough on the from the Wikipedia page. It wasn't any particular scenario, it wasn't any particular event, it was just a general overview of the opening stages of the Rwandan war, when whoever it was who invaded northern Rwanda entered, and I was just doing that. And the thing is, YouTube, they gave me a warning, or they gave me a sort of something on your other, said, you can't do this. They blocked my video, and I appealed, and they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's just automatic software." This was a few years ago, and then about 2 years later, there was a lot of of this sort of YouTube censoring everything stuff going around, and there was a change or something, and then they banned it, and they said you can't have it, and they didn't just ban it; I couldn't even get it, and I somehow saw it from somewhere, and I did a screenshot, and there's absolutely nothing in there, nothing at all, to warrant it being banned. It's just me moving a few counters around and saying, well, this is where they went, and this is what they did, and it wasn't as though there were no sort of massacres or anything like that. The point I'm trying to get to really is, YouTube are just a bit weird about that sort of stuff, but I think everyone knows that now. I don't want to say anything critical about YouTube, although I have absolutely nothing nice to say about them at a strategic level. I use them, and obviously I would prefer to use the other one that I use, which is, I can't remember who it is now, but there's another video host. I upload everything to that in sync, and I have considered actually hosting my own videos and streaming them. It's just all a bit of hassle, really. But the point I'm trying to make, that they banned that video for absolutely no reason. But the thing is, I've sort of considered, well, if I did this one, well, the point I'm trying to get to is multiple points, really. But one of the other points is that they just don't know what they're doing. The people at YouTube, they have absolutely no idea, and that's the weakness. And it's actually a very critical weakness that actually it frustrates me at a number of levels. And in particular, it's maybe with interactions with the police. Let's say, for example, I just cut to the chase. The majority of the police are as thick as shit. I'll say it like that. I mean, I have respect for the police, and so but the thing is, they don't know certain things. I mean, they're not all stupid, obviously, but I'm just saying, in general, they're not lawyers and solicitors, and they don't understand the law, and they don't necessarily always understand what they're doing, and you've got to be careful. I mean, for example, you can't be, irony. I mean, I had a talk with a doctor, and I was saying something. He says, you can't say that. What? He says, well, that's how it is. And he said, no, you can't say those things to me. I'm a doctor. And I don't know, he's full of crap. I don't get along with these sorts of people. But the point is, they don't have a sense of humour, and they can't take things. They don't fully understand nuance. They have to take things at face value. And they don't really understand things fully, in the sense that if you apply nuance or verve to a sort of a sentence or inflection, they just don't see it, and they won't see it. And the point I'm trying to get to with regards to YouTube is that they just saw Rwanda. That's all they saw. They didn't see the video because they couldn't see the context. They couldn't, I'm just here. I've got this, what is this? Is it even a map? It looks like some kind of brown thing with some blue lines and some squares on it. I mean, there were probably people in YouTube that wouldn't know that this is a game if they just saw it like this. They would think that it was a picture. They might think that it's a map, but they might think that it's a map and that these are locations. These squares are towns. They wouldn't know that it's a game. That's how, when I say thick as shit, that's what I mean. Now, obviously, if you were to tell them it's a game, they say, oh, right, I see. And then they would understand that it was a game. But we're talking about people that they're not so much thick as shit because they haven't got any brains. They just don't understand where you're from. So if someone was to come up to me and sort of discuss anything about saying that I had no idea about, I might appear to be a complete idiot. And in that realm, I would be thick as shit, when it comes down to fishing, because I know nothing about it. But the thing is, so what's happened is they've obviously seen this thing about the Rwandan war, because the thing is, I know that I've done a couple of other videos that involve the genocide term. And one of them was quite old, and the Wikipedia article states that this happened before genocide became a known term in the broader sense. It wasn't called a genocide at the time because people didn't know it really. I mean, obviously the concept was there because obviously it was after the Second World War, but it wasn't really something that was being. It wasn't sort of on the tip of everyone's tongue to describe, say, a certain particular set of events. I mean, war was war, but the point I'm trying to get to here at the end of the day is that this is the Khojaly massacre. I mean, I have done the Delhi massacre, but that was slightly different because it was just a massive riot. It was the Sikhs and the Muslims killing each other almost in equal amounts. It was a massacre because there was a lot of people that died. It wasn't a massacre in the sense that they were villagers being in this sense. So the Rwanda war was very different, the Delhi massacre is very different, and the Khojaly massacre is very different. But the point I'm trying to get to, it is sort of a very sensitive event, and I have actually decided. I haven't decided in the big sense. I've decided in the small sense. Maybe I'm just deferring it. But I sort of thought, and plus the fact that I just don't have the time. I wouldn't be able to sit here and say I'm going to play this and actually have a full set of cards to play with, in the sense that I'd probably be too tired. So I wouldn't really want to do it if I was too tired. So I haven't, I certainly don't have time. So right, I'm going to sit down in fully alert state and I'm going to play this. And if I'm in a fully alert state, I got to do some work, and I'm always behind on that. It's just so frustrating. But the point is, I just sort of decided in a small sense that I'm not going to do this video, and maybe mentioning this is even too much, but it is an aside on the development video that this is. And most people don't watch more than 2 minutes of my videos anyway, so I don't even know why I bother. But I do feel as I'm recording something, even for history and perspective, or whatever you want to call it. I had the term there in my head, but I forgot it. The prosperity, not prosperity. That word sounds like posterity. That's the word. So I just want to, I'm quite happy to talk for posterity's sake. But I'm not going to do this as a video, with that sort of thing. Because I actually don't want to annoy YouTube. I don't like YouTube. I don't care for YouTube, but I'm not going to sort of sit there and sort of do something. I don't have anything good to say about them. I have a right to do this, in theory, and it's because they're stupid. They would see this, and maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But the whole idea that they probably wouldn't understand anything. I have actually had not so much feedback and criticism, but I've sort of read somewhere else that people don't understand this game. I mean, I don't think that it would be fair to say that people don't understand the concept of what's going on, but it's not like a regular video. Obviously, you've got my talking, so here you'd be able to interpret what I'm doing quite easily. But if I was to sort of move here and move there, if I was to just play this without saying anything, the people at YouTube probably wouldn't figure out what was happening. You'd have to actually understand what the counters mean. And I'm dealing in Sanskrit. I'm dealing in a sort of a language that these people at YouTube don't understand. And so they can't monitor what's happening. If I was to do something that was, say, malicious or mean or humorous that they didn't like, but I just did it with the counters, because sometimes you get that sort of situation where you do something and it sort of can have, say, implications of one form or another. Maybe not generally in any sort of mean sense, but I've had that sort of the sense that is how people perceive it. It's difficult for them to have a tool that sort of monitors what's going on in this video because they can't read it. It's a bit like Google to some extent. I'm pretty sure that I'm basically banned on Google, and on YouTube. I just get nothing from anything, but I'm sort of used to that. But the point is that when Google looks at this game, I'm pretty sure it has no idea what's going on. That's the text. And I used to think, oh yeah, if you type, this must get a lot of traffic. Why is that a different colour? Oh, that's right, because it's different. Actually, it's actually a different sort of unit. It is different actually, but all it sees is this and this, and there's a lot of code in there, and it probably has no idea how to interpret that. But similarly with YouTube, really. But anyway, the other aspect of maybe why I don't want to do it, because I did actually get quite a few hits for the Road to Hadra, and to be quite honest, I didn't really spend a lot of time looking at where it came from, but I did look at where it came from, and it was quite interesting. But I couldn't decide whether they were Azerbaijanis or Armenians. I think they're Azerbaijanis, but it seemed as though they're definitely one side or the other. But what I sort of wouldn't really want so much, I don't mind people seeing the map, because obviously there's a Wikipedia page, it's not, it is in the public sphere. But I don't want any, it seems inappropriate, I think, maybe to play the game just as they're approaching, some sensitive locations in this war. I certainly don't want to sort of play it and start laughing or something like that. I can't see. I wouldn't imagine that I would upset anyone, but it's just sort of touchy stuff, really. Southron has once said, "To inform is to influence," and to influence on something as significant as this in sort of current events would be sort of something that I don't have to do. I mean, I have to sort of follow the war, and I have to, because otherwise I'll never go back and, get it as it happens again. I mean, so I have to sort of scrape whatever I can, whenever I can, from what's going on in the news, whenever, so that in a year's time I've still got it. But it just seems a bit inappropriate at the moment to sort of go to the length of actually playing it, considering all that happens is that these units go in there, the refugees pop up, and the units then attack the refugees, and that's it. It's not even a game, is it? Really, it's just a simulation. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that, considering I was on the subject of going in that sort of direction of whatever. But it is worth noting that I've done it. It is worth noting that I've maybe made a decision to not do a video on it. It may be ironic to consider this might actually, in retrospect, consider the video isn't doing a video of I wasn't going to make a video might in some eyes some sort of sense be the same thing, but it's not a game. It's not titled the Kajoli Massacre game. I haven't played it as that. I just sort of mentioned it in passing, etc. etc. I'm not sure whether I've made the point or anything really as such, etc. etc. So I'll leave it at that. But obviously, I'll have a lot more stuff to come, and games and development and features, etc. etc. So I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.